Shalom Havreim. There is a lot of anti-Semitism going on in the world right now. Uh, Anti-Semitism was already on the rise, and then amazingly, after October 7th and the brutal attack on Israel by Hamas, the anti-Semitism around the world has actually skyrocketed, um, which is really unfortunate. And with the rise of anti Semitism that has taken place, there's been a resurgence of recirculating of Talmud quotes that are either false or taken out of context or mistranslated or paraphrased from something that doesn't actually say what uh, uh, these are old lists that some of them go back to the 19th century, some of them to Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda minister, and Nazi Germany. That's why when you see some of these lists, they'll even have Germanic forms of the word Mishnah or Sanhedrin, not in their standard English forms, but in Germanic forms. Um, these lists are horrendous, sick, anti-Semitic, and literally are often taken from propaganda pamphlets that were printed by Nazi Germany. Um, I'm going to address a couple of these just to impeach the witness, if you will. But before we get going, I need to ask everybody to please donate to support these videos. For those that don't know, my wife is disabled, chronically ill, and suffers chronic pain. I am her caretaker, and so we need your financial support for the basics of life. So if you can possibly donate to support us and this work, rent was due on the 1st. Today's the 3rd, and we don't have it. So please help us out if you possibly can. All right. Also, I need to ask everybody to like this video, to subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell so you'll get notified when new videos come out. Let us know what you think of our video in the comments and participate in the discussions. And also share these videos with your friends on social media, especially this one. It's especially important to get this word out. Okay. Um, I asked you to donate, but I didn't tell you how. You can donate by clicking on the donate link in the video description. From there, you can donate by PayPal, by Zelle, or by GoFundMe. Or you can simply send donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. Also, like many of our videos, in the video description, there is a link to handouts that will PDF handouts you can print out or look at on your screen to follow along with some of the things that we look at in the video. With that said, I want to move right along. Now, the first thing I want to say is if you get one of these lists shared with you on social media or whatnot, somehow you get one of these lists, you should not be thinking, "Oh, I wonder if this is true," because I have to say these things are so far anti-Semitic and so far from reality that if you think, if you see this list and think, "Oh, I need to check this out. I need to research this. Maybe this is true," you are an anti-Semite. Okay, you need to check your heart, because if you even think that these things might be true and you need to check them out, you're too far gone. That if somebody told you that blonde people eat babies, Would you say, oh, I don't know, I wonder if that's true. I need to do some research and check that out? Of course not. Okay. If somebody told you I ate 1,000,000 hot dogs in an hour, well, you'd say, no, you didn't. I don't need to research and check that out. That's just simply outlandish. Nonetheless, I'm going to take the opportunity to impeach the witness, if you will, by looking at a couple of these that show up on these lists. The first one showed up on the top of the list I just recently got that is circulating on the internet right now. It's supposedly from the Babylonian Talmud, Sanhedrin 54b. And the quotation is, if one committed sodomy with a child of less than 9 years, no guilt is incurred. And another version of this quote that I have seen on anti-Semitic websites, uh, also claiming its source to be Sanhedrin 54b, is, quote, a Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old, which is absurd. Um, First of all, why would it even say that? That's just crazy. All right. Neither of those quotes actually appears in the Talmud. So let me tell you about what uh, Sanhedrin 54b is, and it's helpful to know what the Talmud is. The Talmud is, and I'm going to keep this really super basic, debates and discussions amongst different rabbis from ancient times, I'll put it that way, as to what the Torah means. And it's actually the result of jurisprudence of actually using the Torah as a system of government of a community and delving into exactly what it means and how it is applied in that manner. Sometimes it deals with nuances that some people might think are irrelevant, but from the Jewish mind, the Torah is the very expression of the mind of Elohim. So there is no nuance that isn't relevant, because any nuance of that is delving deeper into the mind of Elohim. Okay. So this is a section of Talmud which is discussing and debating nuances and issues related to Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22. You shall not lie with a male as with a female, and other passages that are in that same section of Leviticus 18 about not lying with animals and whatnot. Okay. So it's actually the section of the Babylonian Talmud is actually commenting on Mishnah 7:4. The Mishnah is the core of the Talmud. It's I'll say, the oldest portion of the Talmud. Okay, so Leviticus chapter 18, verse 22 is the issue that comes up, the question that comes up in this section of Talmud, one of many, is why do we have a commandment that says you will not lie with a man as you do with a woman? And another commandment in Deuteronomy 23:17 that says you will have no sodomites among you. Isn't that a bit redundant? And from the thinking of Jewish thought, there is nothing redundant in the Torah. It's the very expression of the mind of Elohim. There are no mistakes, no coincidences. Every element is relevant. So if you have a commandment that's stated one way in Leviticus 18:22, and then something similar but it's stated in another way in Deuteronomy 23:17, there is something profound to be discovered in the difference between the nuances of those two statements. So, in these discussions, in this portion of the Talmud, it is discovered and brought out that Leviticus 18:22 is, well, it is discovered and brought out that there are two elements to sodomy, two crimes of sodomy. One is active sodomy, the active participant, and that is being addressed in Leviticus 18:22. You will not lie with a man as with a woman. That's addressing active sodomy. And the reason that there's a separate commandment in Deuteronomy 23:17, there shall be no sodomite among you, is addressing the passive participant and the passive act of sodomy, allowing oneself, voluntarily allowing oneself, and participating voluntarily as the passive recipient of the act of sodomy. So there's two different sins of sodomy: active sodomy and passive sodomy. And this section of Talmud then goes on to determine that a 9-year-old child, 9 and under basically, is incapable of voluntarily submitting to passive sodomy, that he incurs no guilt in the act of passive sodomy. In other words, what it is saying is that if a grown man sodomizes a child, the child bears no guilt. And so the Talmud concludes, or Rav concludes, in this section, in this discussion, they have not treated sexual relations of a male less than 9 years old as equivalent to sexual relations of a male of 9 years or older. So that what the Talmud is saying is that a child less than the age of 9 cannot have possibly submitted intentionally to the to an act of sodomy. It doesn't matter if the active participant was an adult or what, or another child. A child under the age of 9 couldn't possibly have passively participated in and incurred guilt in that situation. Who would not agree with that? Anybody that wouldn't agree with that statement is sick. And anyone who would then turn around and read that section of Talmud and lie and say that it says that a Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old is a sick anti-Semite. And anyone that says that it says if one commits sodomy with a child of less than 9 years old, no guilt is incurred, as a misleading and false paraphrase, because the guilt that's being discussed is that of passive sodomy, and that saying that no guilt is incurred by the child. To quote that out of context and actually tweak the translation to even get there is a liar, sick, and an anti-Semite. And if you read that quote in anything somebody put out and thought, I wonder if that's true. I wonder if Jews sodomize children. You're an anti-Semite too. Okay? If you even needed me to do a presentation delving into and explaining this page of Talmud to assure yourself that that couldn't be true, you were already an anti-Semite. All right. I want to look at another example. This one is Moed Katan 17a, the Babylonian Talmud. And the passage that gets quoted out of context is, if a person is tempted to do evil, he should go to a city where he is not known, dress in black clothes, cover his head in black, and do what his heart desires, so that God's name will not be desecrated. So one of the things about the Talmud is that it includes majority and minority opinions. It's like the U.S. Supreme Court record. Many opinions are proposed by certain rabbis, and uh, the whole nuance of that opinion might even be discussed. All the things that we could derive from if that opinion were correct may go on for pages before the Talmud turns around and says, "Nah, that's not right." Okay, and then and you have to have uh, serious knowledge of Talmud study to know the special phrases that are used in Talmud that tell you which opinions are the accepted versus the rejected views. Um, Also, it's helpful to know who the different rabbis being quoted in the Talmud are, because the authorities of the Talmud, we know who they are. There are lists of them, who their teachers were, whatnot. And if somebody gets cited that's just uh, a random name, if you will, of a rabbi that's never ever elsewhere mentioned, that's significant too. So when one reads this passage in context, it's clear that the Talmud is not at all suggesting that a person should take this course of action. To the contrary, this section of Talmud is discussing the unscrupulous behavior of an individual who had been disfellowshipped by Rabbi Judah. Rabbi Judah was the compiler of the Mishnah, one of the great rabbis, authoritative rabbis. Okay. After Rabbi Judah died, he came to the court seeking to have his disfellowshipment reversed. Oh, this isn't the same Rabbi Judah. Sorry. Reading over notes that I have from years ago. Um, it was, oh no, he was disfellowshipped by Rabbi Judah. That's correct. After Rabbi Judah died, the individual came to the court seeking to have his disfellowshipment reversed. The rabbis looked into the matter and they refused to do so. So, this very authoritative rabbi, Rabbi Judah, disfellowshipped him. After Rabbi Judah died, he was, oh, maybe this could be reconsidered. His family said maybe this could be reconsidered, and the rabbis looked into it and they refused to reconsider, or they refused to reverse his opinion. Soon after, the man died. The man was then refused a burial in the cemetery for the righteous, and he was allowed only to be buried in the cemetery of judgment, the grotto of the judges, a cemetery for the condemned, people that had been excommunicated. They were allowed to be given a burial in a proper Jewish cemetery. We're then told the reason that this man was disfellowshipped and not returned to fellowship and not permitted burial in the grotto of the righteous in a proper Jewish cemetery is because the man had followed the poor advice given to him by Rabbi Elah. Quote, and Rabbi Elah is not one of the great rabbis of the Talmud. Rabbi Elah, so this, nobody rabbi told him, quote, if one sees that his evil inclination is gaining sway over him, let him go away where he is not known. Let him put on sordid clothes, don a sordid cap, and do the sordid deed that his heart desires, rather than profane the name of heaven openly. So here's what this portion of Talmud says in context. The man came to the college and said, absolve me. Said the rabbis to him, there is no man here of the standing of Rabbi Judah who could absolve you, but go to Rabbi Judah Nisaiah that he may absolve you. He went and presented himself to him. Said he to Rabbi Ami, go forth and look into this case. If it be necessary to absolve him, absolve him. Rabbi Ami looked into his case and had a mind to absolve him. Then Rabbi Nehemiah got up on his feet and said, "Why even a separation imposed by one of the domestics in Rabbi's house was so lightly treated by the rabbis for 3 years? How much more so one imposed by our colleague Rabbi Judah?" Said Rabbi Zerah, from the fact that this venerable scholar should just now have turned up at this college after not having come here for so many years, you must take it that it is not desirable to absolve that man. He, Rabbi Judah Nisaiah, did not absolve him. He went away weeping. A wasp then came and stung him on the privy member, and he died. They brought him into the grotto of the judges, and they received him. Why was he admitted there? Because he had acted according to the dictum of Rabbi Elah. For Rabbi Elah says, if one sees that his evil yetzer, his uh, yetzer means inclination, is gaining sway over him, let him go away where he is not known. Let him put on sordid clothes, don a sordid wrap, and do the sordid deed that his heart desires, rather than profane the name of heaven openly. So, what does this mean? It's saying here that this Rabbi Elah gave him terrible advice. This is a position that the Talmud is rejecting. The Talmud is saying this advice was so bad that the guy who followed it was disfellowshipped and buried in a cemetery, not allowed a proper Jewish burial in a proper Jewish cemetery, was buried in a cemetery set aside for those that had been disfellowshipped, and spent years and made many efforts to try and get that disfellowship overturned, and failed because what he did was so bad and couldn't be overturned. Anyone who quotes this out of context to indicate or imply that the Talmud is teaching that this is something that you should do is a liar and an anti-Semite, because this is exactly what the Talmud is actually saying you must not do. Okay. All right. There's so many more of these passages that are misquoted out of context. Some of them are misquoted. The Talmud doesn't even say what they say. Some of them have been paraphrased 2 or 3 times with a little more anti-Semitic spin on them each time, to where they've become something that the Talmud isn't even close to saying. But these lists are put out by anti-Semites. They are anti-Semitic to their core, and many of them actually are English translations of pamphlets that were put out by Joseph Goebbels and Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany. All right. Before I close, need to ask everybody to please donate if you possibly can. You can do that by clicking on the donate link in the video description, sending donations to PayPal, by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. Please like our video. Please subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and let us know what you think in the comments. Participate in the discussions in the comments. Share this video with your friends on social media. That's very important in this time in which anti-Semitism is exploding in the world. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's Friday afternoon as I'm making this video. So at this point in time, Shabbat Shalom. And until next time, Shalom.